My name is Colin Chester, and I'm a proud member of Rays of Hope. Today, I have the distinct pleasure of speaking to Minister Steve Bingham about homelessness issues in Ocean County. Rays of Hope has had the pleasure of serving with Minister Steve on many occasions, primarily on Saturdays at the town square in Lakewood, where families in need come to get clothing and food. Minister Steve Brigham is an ordained minister, has been helping out the homeless of Ocean County for 20 years, is the founder and president of Destiny's Bridge, which is a nonprofit organization, managed Tent City in Lakewood for 8 years with a total population of 124 people at its peak. It is the largest tent city on the east coast of the United States outside of Florida. He also managed a tent city in Howell, which is the only government-approved tent city on the East Coast outside of Florida. He has been holding a weekly program for the homeless and poor for 20 years, where food and clothing are given away. And he owns a tiny home and advocates for their use for the homeless and poor. Why do you think people become homeless, especially in Ocean County?
Well, Colin, it's first of all, it's a pleasure to be here. Rays of Hope have been a very positive group in coordination with Destiny's Bridge, and it's a pleasure to be here. As far as people becoming homeless, there's a host of reasons that people become homeless. Um, Probably mental illness is a big cause. Addictions can be a cause. Just lack of skills to get a job that would uh, afford them the cost of living in this area. The cost of living in Ocean County is extremely high. Average rent for a one bedroom is about $1,400 a month, and a lot of people just can't afford that rent, especially if they're uh, if they're a single individual and they're not teaming up with other people, or they don't have someone else to share the rent with. That's an extremely high rent. So a lot of people just can't afford the cost of living in Ocean County. And so they fall through the cracks and they become homeless. I ran Tent City in Lakewood, and there was a host of different reasons why the people were there.
I see. So it's no one specific reason, as opposed to a multitude of different reasons and different circumstances contributing to this problem.
That's right, Colin.
What areas of Ocean County tend to have the highest amount of people in need?
Well, Ocean County is a county with about 600,000 people. Over a half a million people live in Ocean County, yet there is no full time shelter here for people to go. If they become homeless, there is no shelter. If The only shelter we do have is a temporary shelter called the Code Blue Shelter, but a full time shelter, there is nothing in Ocean County. If somebody becomes homeless during the middle of the summer for some reason, there's no place for them to go.
I see. And that kind of segues into my next question. Can you rather explain the lack of a shelter in Ocean County, or why there hasn't been a shelter built, rather?
Well, that I don't know the exact reason, but I can ascertain what the reason might be. Of course, Ocean County is a resort county. It has the ocean here. A lot of people come from other areas to spend their summer vacation at the beach. So I think what's happening here is the powers that be, the politicians, are not building a shelter on purpose. Don't build it and they won't stay type of policy. And so I think that's what's going on here in Ocean County. The Ocean County said that they were going to build a shelter at the end of Tent City, and they never did. So yes, it's very discouraging because they're thinking of other aspects of the society and not thinking of the poor and the needy that's here.
I see. So, one question, personal question that I had are, Are there homeless children, and how many have you seen in your years of working?
Well, statistics say that public school students in New Jersey, there's last year was 13,000 homeless children going to public schools. And so I've seen when I ran Tent City a couple times where families came down with children. But at that point, I couldn't bring them into the community only because the powers that be, if they saw a child in Tent City, it would probably have negative repercussions on the camp. So in each one of the situations, I was able to find an alternative housing option for that family. So there was no children in Tent City, but I've seen quite a few children that have been homeless in my day.
Okay. Can you please expand more on what Code Blue is?
Code Blue is something that Governor Christie, one of the last things he did when he left office was to institute this law, put into law this Code Blue. And what it is, if the temperature gets below 35 degrees, they have to open a shelter in the area, in the county. So we have two Code Blue shelters in Ocean County, both in Toms River. Right now, there's nothing in Lakewood and nothing in any other part of the county except Toms River. So it can be, it's a positive thing. You know, something is better than nothing, of course. I'm very happy that there is a Code Blue shelter, but it can be quite inconvenient for people if they live in Lakewood to get down to Toms River and then get back to Lakewood. They have to leave at 8 o'clock in the morning and then they have to arrive at around 5 o'clock in the evening back at the shelter. So it's kind of inconvenient, but again, something is better than nothing.
So, in the entirety of Ocean County, there's only one facility.
Well, there's two buildings, but they're both in Toms River, and they're not too far apart from each other. So, yeah, that's only Code Blue. Once the temperature gets below above 35, these individuals have to find another alternative because there is no shelter for them to go to.
I see. How many people are there living in tents in Ocean City? Would you think, rather?
Well, there's I know of at least 20 personally, and some of the people are opting to go to the Code Blues right now. I stopped at a tent this afternoon, and there were three people at that tent site the other day, and one of those persons had opted to go to the Code Blue shelter. And so there's a large number of people accessing the Code Blue shelters.
I
But
see.
yeah, there's a lot of people living in tents, and there's a lot of people living in their automobiles also around around the county, sleeping in parking lots, store parking lots, sleeping in other places. So yeah, there's a large problem, a large issue with people not being able to find shelter in Ocean County.
Are there any sort of programs or resources being offered to get the homeless back on their feet?
Well, there's not a one-stop location right now. They can go to social services, and sometimes they can get some temporary housing through social services. Um, but as of right now, there's only temporary solutions to the problem. They can be housed for short periods of time in a hotel, but then when the time is done, they've got to leave there and either find a tent, find some shelter of some sort, an alleyway in the between the buildings, or something where they can lay their head.
Are there any programs for jobs to give people who are homeless jobs, or at least interview them or train them for jobs?
Well, the problem is there is something that the county social services is offering. Um, but the problem with an individual finding a job is that the cost of living is so high that a single individual would have to make $21 an hour at that job to afford someplace to stay in Ocean County. And the jobs that they're offering and the jobs that they're training for, don't won't earn them anywhere near that amount of money. So at the end of the day, if they're trained for a job that doesn't pay $21 an hour, they will not be able to maintain their housing for any length of time.
What do you think some solutions to this housing problem are?
Well, again, it's multifaceted. Again, we need more housing that is lower cost. Something in the $500 range, $700 range, maybe $900 range. So we need different levels of housing for different individuals and the income that they're making. So we need to create uh, more housing. There needs to be lower cost housing that's available for people. So once they get the lower cost jobs, they can afford a place to live. And so those are typically not available in Ocean County. And so it's a restriction on people of lower income. And so we need to create developments, a lot of housing that tiny homes also is an option here, and where people are paying, $400 a month to live.
So, what you're suggesting is essentially that more houses are built, and then the cost of those houses are low enough so that the jobs that homeless people do have, they're able to afford those houses and afford to live, as opposed to having to live in a tent or in their car.
Exactly, Colin. It's basically a free market idea. There's a need out there. There's people that will pay that money, and houses can be built. Smaller houses can be built where rents can be charged at a lower cost, 400, $600, and so it's just a basic free market system that we want in place here. And it can be done. If they can build a large house, they can build a small house. So it's not that difficult.
I see. How much has homelessness in Ocean County increased since COVID-19?
Well, as of right now, they still have the moratorium on rent. So people that have fallen back, and I know quite a few people that have fallen back on their rent because of losing their job, or their job isn't. Uh, they're just not. They don't have the work that they used to have, and so they're not bringing in the same amount of money. So I see a lot of people that are not able to keep up. They're falling back on their rent, but the moratorium is the landlords can't uh, remove a person that is falling back on their rent. But what's going to happen is when the moratorium is dropped, we're going to see a lot of landlords, asking the tenants to leave. And at that point, I'm afraid we're going to see a tidal wave of homelessness in Ocean County and across the nation. And so, yeah, I don't believe that the government is ready for that, prepared for that. So, when that comes, I believe I'm going to have to provide a lot of tents for people.
So then, in which case, what do you think can be done to kind of alleviate the strain before this happens?
Well, hopefully there'll be apartments, government subsidized hotels, in Seaside or Tom's River or Point Pleasant, wherever there's hotels. The government will help out those people with, a certain amount of hotel room, some shelter. And this is another reason we needed a shelter in Ocean County, for just this reason. When there is a major influx of homelessness in the community and society, we need a place for people to go. And so this is another reason we need to have a shelter in Ocean County.
How can we raise awareness about this issue?
Well, I think the Rays of Hope can be proactive, going to meetings, freeholder meetings, township meetings, and advocate. The numbers are there. The code blue numbers are there. 10 city numbers are there. The hotel numbers are there where the homeless are staying in hotels. So the record shows that we desperately need a shelter in Ocean County. So, so the part of the advocate, Rays of Hope, if they want to advocate this for this cause, they have a lot of ammunition to go before the politicians to demand that they do something for the people.
How can someone support the work that you're doing with Destiny's Bridge? My apologies.
Well, I do this program on a weekly basis. I do two programs where we give out clothing and food to the poor. About 100 people come out to those programs each day, so it's about 200 people a week come out to these programs in Lakewood. And so clothing can be donated. We have some drop-off locations where people can drop off the clothing, and then I go around during the week and I pick the clothing up. Also, we put up people in hotel. We just put up a woman today who was in Lakewood, who was living outside with no shelter at all. All she had was her belongings in a shopping cart. And so we put her up in a hotel today for the second week, since the weather is, brutal out there right now with the snow, and we're expecting very frigid temperatures in the next week in this teens. So and then there's another couple that we put up in a hotel. So finances are helpful to support putting people up in hotels. It's mostly women that we're putting up in the hotels. So any type of financial support for those reasons, and of course for overhead, is appreciated. Um, Everybody that works for Destiny's Bridge, helps out in Destiny's Bridge, is a volunteer. There is no paid employees for Destiny's Bridge, so all the money goes to helping out the homeless.
Thank you, Minister Steve, for everything that you've done with the community, especially with Rays of Hope. And it was a pleasure speaking with you.
Well, thank you, Colin, and it was a pleasure speaking with you. And Rays of Hope, I'm very pleased to be associated with Rays of Hope. It's a wonderful organization, and thank you so much.
Thank you.